This is the YouTube version of the Hidden Experience audio podcast. This show is hosted by Mike Cleland, and that's me, and it is available on most of the popular podcast platforms. Just search out Hidden Experience Audio. And if you want to support the show, you can find it on Patreon, as well as Buy Me a Coffee. This YouTube version has ads, but the audio version is always ad-free. And you can also join my YouTube channel here. And now the show. October 25th, 2024. I met Sev at a conference in 2020 and saw her again last year at another conference. She spoke about her contact experiences and how she worked to integrate them into her life and how this has allowed her to follow a truer, more authentic path. And Sev has a book. It's titled, You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens. This is linked in the show notes, or you can search it on Amazon. And she is the only SEV TOK, so rest assured you will find it. Now, about our interview. I did the one thing that every podcaster fears. Here's what happened. We began our conversation, and after about 55 minutes, I noticed we were not recording. I hadn't hit the record button, and oh God, my heart sank. I interrupted and told her, and I was pretty annoyed at myself, and my first thought was just to postpone and come back at some point later on and start over. And Sev would have none of it. She said, no, let's keep going. And you will hear us at the beginning of the actual recorded interview. We talk about exactly this. And now, you, the listener, might need some help getting up to speed with who Sev actually is and what she has experienced. Now, rest assured, we did a formal introduction in the unrecorded lead-up to what you will be hearing. So you don't get to hear that. I asked her questions like, how did you come to do the work you were doing? Like those kind of normal things that a host would ask. So let me fill you in at least a little bit. Sev was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and her family moved to America shortly after she was born. And she has memories of interacting with beings from a very young age. And we talked about how her Turkish upbringing helped her with these experiences. Culturally, her parents were very open to some of the more unusual paranormal events, including things they themselves witnessed around their home. Now, during this interview, the one I actually recorded, we mentioned the mix-up a few times. In my role as podcaster, I like to edit. I really feel it's important that I edit these shows. And so what happens is that I will listen to the entire show with headphones on and do the editing before posting it. So what I can say is that our conversation works great, and I don't think you will have any problem following her story and her experiences. One more thing. She asked me as many questions as I asked her, so this is a true conversation. We laugh and we have fun, but we also shed some tears. And both of us dug deep, and parts of this episode ended up getting very emotional. Okay, so now on a lighter note, there is a very funny thing with a fly. You might hear it buzzing around Sev's mic a few times during the episode. I'm going to follow up at the end with a little more about the fly, but just rest assured, you'll hear us laugh when the thing happens, the thing with the fly. Our conversation runs about an hour and 35 minutes. Please enjoy. Sev, I want to thank you so much for saying yes to this interview. It means a lot to me.
Well, it means a lot to me that you asked me. It's a pleasure to be with you. You know how much I adore you. I think you're wonderful. So thank you for having me on. And it's a pleasure to spend time with you and your listeners.
You're wonderful too. I can say that. What I also have to say is, we spoke for 55 minutes. We had the best conversation. It was wonderful. And then I looked down at the little counter and it wasn't clicking along. Like I had not started the record button. So we just had 55 minutes of what was the most joyous, pleasant, delightful conversation. It was the conversation I would have wanted to have with you over coffee. Didn't matter that there was an audience, but it was. So anyway.
Now we have to do it again.
I'm kicking myself in the head a little bit, but
It's okay.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to do.
Okay.
Let's just kind of keep going with where we were.
Okay.
And
Do you want me to start with the owl story?
yeah, please. That would be a great place to start.
Okay. You want me to start now?
Sure.
Okay. I live out in the country. I'm on the inner banks of North Carolina. I'm driving on country roads, and we have no streetlights. So I don't like driving at night because it's pitch black. And we also have a lot of wild animals here that can cross the road, including Sasquatch, which I think I've seen.
Which we're going to get to that. Yeah, keep going.
So I'm driving at night. It was one of those situations where I had to be driving at night. I'm on this road with no lights. And I think to myself, this would be the perfect time for a spaceship to come and get me. And then I start seeing this little movie in my mind's eye of a spaceship coming over the car, and it takes me out of the car, and I'm beamed up into the spaceship in this beam of light. And then the vision is over, and I come back, I'm like, I'm driving. I need to be driving. And at that very moment, an owl swoops down and flies right over the hood of my car. And it was big, it was brown, and I could see it because it was in the lights of the headlights. And at that moment, I thought of you, Mike. I did. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an owl moment that Mike lives for.
Why didn't you call me when it happened?
And to this day, I'm not quite sure what that was. Did I have an experience, or are the owls just aligned with a higher frequency of thought? That when we enter a higher frequency of awareness or thought, the owl senses that about us. And they're like, there's a human over there that's in a high frequency place right now. I'm going to go over there and say hello.
I am totally, completely open to that as a possibility. That's a great way to look at it. I can't answer whether that's true or not. What I can say is that it aligns so much with this UFO type contact experience, the visionary daydream that you had in your mind, that I can't separate that from the story either.
No.
And I can also say that your story is just textbook perfect. Textbook perfect. Like I get that story all the time in some form or another. Never exactly what you shared, but so many events that are very, very similar. So your story is right in line with the core of my research. And let's back up a little bit. So you have had UFO contact experiences, a lifetime of them. We just talked for 55 minutes and covered so much of that. You're laughing and I'm a little bit embarrassed. But so the owl certainly could be aligned with a higher frequency, let's say, or a higher or a non-ordinary state of mind. What I can say is that I do a lot of my best thinking driving alone, right? So you're driving alone. It's kind of an automated process. You don't have to necessarily think about how to turn the wheel or think about how to put your foot on the gas pedal. It's so like there's like walking meditation, right? So you're doing this automated thing. You're walking. At the same time, you can meditate. So if you focus on your breath, you're focusing on an automated thing. So it does not surprise me that you could have been in a state where a powerful daydream, like you called it a film in your mind, right? So you were seeing the film in your mind in a daydream, and it played out like cinema. And at the same time, it's punctuated by an owl. That is perfect. That is perfect. So it's not just any old daydream. It is a daydream about having UFO contact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And would you say all owls are the same? Are all owls attracted to this higher frequency?
I'm saying, so I would say that I even include, like you could have been driving, had that same thing. Someone could have walked across the street with a big owl T-shirt on. And for me, I would have given it just as much power as if a real owl had flown in front of your car.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So I'm saying the owl is a symbol. I don't care how that symbol shows up.
It doesn't matter which kind of owl. Ah.
Yeah. So I was living in upstate New York. My partner and I at the time, Andrea, she called me out into the front yard, and we had a dirt driveway, and there was like sand would collect at the bottom of the driveway. It was always very flat. And she said, Mike, come out here and look at this. What does this look like? And you look at this big flat section of sand. It wasn't very big, size of a tabletop. And in the sand was what looked like a very loose drawing of an owl. It would have looked like a little kid had drawn it. Very simple. It was made by a snail walking in the sand. It wasn't perfect, right? It wasn't perfect. It was like a little rough drawing. It had the ears and the big eyes and a little beak. And it was made by a snail in the driveway. So I take that to me is that's almost more powerful than seeing an owl, right?
That's amazing.
There was no event that really connected to it, but both of our lives were really highly charged with owls. And we had owls all around that house. So.
Mm-hmm. Is this the lady you were with when the owls were flying all over you when you were out camping?
No, that was long before. That was in 2006, and that was a woman named Kristen.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they showed up when the both of you were having a conversation about God, right?
Correct.
So you were in that altered state as well.
At the moment we saw those owls, I was in a state of, I don't want to say astonishment. That's not quite the right word. I was in a state where I realized this is someone much smarter, much more spiritual, much more insightful than I would have ever guessed. I was having that thought. I was like, oh, wow. I did not expect to have this conversation about God with this complete stranger. Not complete stranger. We were friends from this very small town, but it was essentially a first date. In a way. That's a little bit so.
Your first date with owls.
Well, but also with where I was like connecting with someone on such a powerful level. It was at that moment of like deep spiritual connection. Yeah. Through conversation that the owls appeared. Yeah, that is vital to that story. I cannot separate that moment from the owl sightings. Yes.
So we were in the same place. When you're talking to God and I'm imagining that I'm being taken by an ET, for some reason, that is a very similar frequency. That's something about that the owl aligns with. So what is it? I think it feels like it's when we are experiencing life through a higher vibration. And that thought, whatever that thought can be, it could be an ET, it could be talking about God, it could be contemplating your purpose, whatever it is, when you're in that space, the owl sees it and says, I'm going to come over and I'm going to validate you.
And in my first book, I actually write about, can the owl see, you used the term auric field earlier when we when we weren't being recorded.
We didn't record it, yeah.
Can the owl see the auric field the same way that that a dog can hear a dog whistle?
Yeah.
Right? We can't hear the dog whistle, but the dog can.
Yeah.
We can't, we can't see someone's higher, some people can, like maybe you can, but I can't, can see the auric field or the aura around someone. Can the owl see that the same way like a Carillion camera can see the auric field around like a rose bush or something?
I think so. One time I was in my office when I was living in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., and my cat walked in. And for some reason, on that particular day, at that particular moment, I can see auras around people. I can see energies and colors. So my cat Comet walked in, and she was blue. I so blue around her. I'm like, oh, look at her. She's so blue. How sweet. And I said her name, Comet, and she instantly turned pink. I was like, whoa, like right before my very eyes. So I'm like, okay, let me do this again. So I waited for the pink to turn blue. And I said, Comet. And she looked at me and turned pink. I was like, oh, this is a cool thing to witness. So sometimes I call her my little pink kitty. And I do look at their energy. You can see it. It's just kind of like, it's just, the easiest place to see it is around their head, really is the easiest place to see it. And I like to just determine what color it is and then say something and see if it changes. They're a different color when they sleep. They're a different color when they're walking around. This is something we can all do. This is available to all of us. It just takes practice.
Wow. I have not had that direct experience. I've had plenty of experiences of psychic events.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't control the psychic events, but I sure know when they happen.
Yeah.
And I've learned to really trust them.
Oh, I trust them too. Mm-hmm.
What type of work are you doing? Let's just get right into this, the work you're doing, and then we can talk about your other experiences. But because we kind of touched on that a little bit as we're going.
Thank you. I am an experiencer advocate. I help experiencers around the world process what happened because we need help. If you made ET contact, you need to talk to somebody. I didn't realize that for decades. And when I finally did, I talked to Kathleen Martin, and she changed my life. So people can reach me on my website and on my email if they need help with understanding their ET contact. The other thing I do, and I've been doing this for 14 years, is soul purpose sessions with clients around the world. And these are interdimensional, multidimensional sessions. The information that comes through from my client is information that I hear, feel, and see through their energy, through their guides, through my guides, and just picking up information that floats around us in this quantum field of information that we live in. And everybody can tap into this information. This is free information, free therapy for everybody. It just takes practice. So what comes through for my client, and before we start the session, I do them on Zoom or in person. I do not ask my client any questions. I don't want to know why they want to talk to me. I don't want to know what issues they have. I want to know nothing. So we start right away. And I just start writing down information about them. It's 6 to 8 pages worth of information, which we discuss. I read it to them, and then I email it or send it to them so they have it. And what comes out is why they're here, their purpose, and how they can manifest that. What the best career paths are for them, and how they can manifest that. A past life comes up that explains something that's going on now. And also mind patterns, beliefs that we have, and we all have them, that just keep us from progress or success or manifesting something that we really want. So these sessions are, I call them a blueprint for your happiness. And we talk a lot about the quality of your auric field. What is the energy that you're radiating? What you're radiating is creating your reality. You are aligning with people, places, and things that have a similar auric energy as you do. So if you want to see any changes in your life, you have to change the quality or the frequency of the energy that you radiate, and that is done through the mind. So we talk a lot about mind beliefs, mind patterns, how to change them. So you instantly change your energy, your auric field, so then you instantly change your life.
Okay, so you were doing these soul purpose sessions for how, 14 years?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, how long into this did you start working with UFO experiencers?
Okay, so I started doing my sessions in 2010, and I started working with experiencers about 7 years ago, 2017, 2018.
So that's about 7 years in, yeah. So 7 years in, yeah. So basically half of the time.
Yes.
So half. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, you were very. Let me try to think this through. What I'm seeing in my research is, here's the questions I ask: what happened before your experience? What happened after your experience? Do you have psychic abilities? Do you have healing abilities? Those are the only 4 things. I obviously ask all kinds of things, but people coming to me who have had owl experiences, oftentimes UFO and owl experiences, those are the questions I ask. So you were already a healer before you had come to terms with your ET contact experiences. It sounds like you were struggling. You were already a healer during that struggling process. Am I correct?
Yes. So my first conscious memory of ET contact happened at age 10, from 10 to 12. And then there was a break in there with ET contact, but a lot of supernatural stuff happened to me. And then after I started my sessions in 2010, I left my relationship, got a divorce, and at that moment, a whole bunch of ET stuff started happening all over again. And so I'm dealing with that and doing these soul purpose sessions and trying to keep it separate, because I didn't want my ET stuff to enter into my soul purpose work with my clients. Now, it's all combined. I have a career in the spiritual world. I have a career in the UFO world. And then they also intersect at one point. They do. They come together. There's a melding there. You can't deny.
P.S. You can deny it. That doesn't. Not gonna. I know a lot of UFO researchers who would deny that melding point of the psychic healing. Right. The psychic healers. They don't want to, like. I'm going to be very provocative here. The people who don't want to clutter up their research modalities by talking to psychics. They only want to look at government documents and video footage of Tic Tacs. Those people, they're in a category called men. I'm doing that on purpose. I know that's not quite true, but it's sort of true. And then the people who are doing the psychic work, the consciousness work, the healing work are often women. That's a caricature. There's some truth to that caricature.
It's pretty valid.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. It's funny how that. Yeah. So I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I think we're both. You know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we both know what we're saying. We're just trying to be careful. Okay, so you want me to keep going? Where did I? So you dropped a little bomb there. We're going to go back to it. You said you saw Sasquatch. Oh, okay, yeah.
You kind of dropped that a little bit when we were talking about the owl on the road.
Yeah. Okay, this was about 5 years ago, and still living here out in the middle of nowhere by the water, and there's a music festival. So it's, I think, a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, and I decide to go to this music festival, and I'm driving there, and all of a sudden, I'm the only car on the road, and something crosses the road about 100 feet in front of me. I'm like, what the heck is that? I've never seen anything like that before in my life. It was not a dog, and it had black hair. And I could actually see its fur moving. It was long. It was glossy. It was actually beautiful. And it ran across the road on all four. And its back was slanted. Mm-hmm. And its front arms did not bend. It didn't have like elbows. It was the front arms were just walking across the road straight. And it didn't have a neck. So it was like this head and these two arms and then the back legs. And the people, we're seeing each other on video. So you did a little pantomime of what that was. Okay, keep going. Yeah. So I got a good vision of what. So. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have no idea what that is, but I think that's a deformed bear. That's what I'm going to call it. And then when it ran into the trees and I tried to find it as I was driving by and I couldn't see it. And for days after that, I told my friends I saw a deformed bear. And I didn't think anything else about it. So when I moved here, I found out that this is a Bigfoot area. A lot of people see Bigfoot. And my friends told me, Sev, you need to talk to Bigfoot Benny.
And this was before you had your sighting. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I met Bigfoot Benny, and he has seen Bigfoot here many times. He has a prints of their footprints. What do you call it? Plaster of Paris things. When
sure,
you make
the cast.
Yeah. Of adult and baby. He's heard them howling and yowling. He claims that they ate pears from his tree. And he saw, you know how they stack sticks? He's seen that. And so one day we were going to go on a Sasquatch walk together. He was going to take me to where he's seen them. But the weather was really bad. It was really raining, so we couldn't go. And then next thing we know, there was logging. And they cut down all the trees where this one particular family of Sasquatch lived. I don't know where they went. And I decided, after talking to Bigfoot Benny, that I was going to telepathically talk to the Sasquatch here. So I'd just be in my living room, and I would just send out messages to any Sasquatch in the area that was listening. And I would say, "Hi, I love you. I want to see you. Will you show yourself to me? I'm safe. You can trust me." And I would just say things like that. And then shortly after that, then this Sasquatch walked across the street. Now, Bigfoot Benny called me shortly after I saw this deformed bear that I thought it was. And when I was talking to him, I had no recollection of this event at all, because to me it was a deformed bear. And he says to me, "You know, Sev, so-and-so," I don't remember his name, John. "My friend John saw a Bigfoot recently." I'm like, "Oh, what did it look like?" And he described exactly what I saw. Exactly. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I saw that too." So here was validation. I wasn't even asking for it. I wasn't even thinking of it. And I got the validation.
But this all began with you sitting in your living room saying, "Hi, I love you," psychically. So you were asking, you were sending that directly to the Sasquatch beings out there in the forest, whatever they might be, whether they're physical beings or whether they're metaphysical beings.
Both.
Or a combination of both. That, yeah, exactly. I think that'd be the more correct way. Like my strongest interpretation would be that they can be physical and metaphysical at will.
I agree. I think that too.
Yeah, lots of stories of people following Bigfoot tracks in the snow, and they just poof, disappear in a meadow.
Yeah, that's what Bigfoot Benny was describing to me. He saw the same thing. He saw adult prints with little youngster prints, and then all of a sudden the youngster print disappears. He assumed that the adult picked it up, and then the adult print just disappears.
To me, that says that they're vanishing in some way. They're leaving a physical footprint. Something made that footprint either in the sand or the snow or the mud, something else that's beyond our ordinary realm of what we would call reality, consensus reality.
And we know wherever there's Bigfoot, there's usually a lot of UFO sightings too. So I live in North Carolina here on the Inner Banks, and North Carolina has a lot of UFO sightings, one of the top states in the country with UFO sightings. And we're right here on the water too. So the water has something to do with UFOs. They like the water.
You are not the only one saying that. Yeah. So you asked, you made a request, a formal request to see a Bigfoot, and then you saw it. So that to me says that's perfect, right? I mean, I recognize the power of the sighting, but standing back, take a few steps back, you asked, you received, you got what you asked for. That's perfect. That's perfect.
I should ask again.
Well, I mean, you can ask again, and it might
not be. I shouldn't be greedy.
Well, you could be greedy, but you might not get an answer the way you. So yeah, go ahead and ask.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Like if you were writing a detective novel, and the detective finds the one clue, right, and he doesn't have to find that clue again later in the story. All you need is that one clue to prove what happened. So you have the experience. Maybe you'll get another one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm still poo-pooed when I tell people that I see Sasquatch. They're like, "Yeah, right, whatever."
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, but I mean, you're telling people you've had UFO contact experiences. You're saying that too. So I mean, you're already.
They're more apt to believe that than I saw Sasquatch.
You know what? It's funny. There's the UFO people and the Bigfoot people. Boy, they do not mix. They do not mix. You're not welcome at the Bigfoot conference if you're a UFO researcher, and the other way around too.
What?
Well, because the Bigfoot people, for the most part, see it as a flesh and blood creature. There's a researcher, Timothy Renner, and he lives in Pennsylvania, and he does mostly Bigfoot, and he's very open-minded. He's got a very, very wide open view of how he looks at things, and he'll talk to people who have seen Bigfoot, and they'll take him to the forest, and here's the spot where it happened, and this and that, and he's like looking at these people, and he's like, they're holding something back, like, and he goes, well, what else happened? And you're like, well, I don't really want to. Come on, tell me. And it's like, well, I saw a UFO in this field the day before, or something like that. So that's very common, but people are just out of their own self-preservation because they just don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
We'll keep some of those cards hidden.
That's right.
Unless you really press them. And that's my sense. I mean, that's my sense too about everyone who has the contact experience of some sort. You press them a little bit and they've got, they've had profound synchronicities that are just off the charts, or they've had psychic experiences, or they have healing abilities. These are the things that are tied into this mystery. Yeah. Also,
one thing I've discovered in talking to experiencers around the world, many times I'll ask them, did you have any unusual experiences when you were little? Like, did anything unusual come into your room? Do you have any reoccurring dreams of some kind of unusual being when you were little? And sometimes they'll say no right away. Mm-hmm, no, nothing like that. And then talking to them an hour later, they're like, oh, well, there was that one time where there was this weird being that showed up by the side of my bed when I was like 4 years old. And I don't know if they just don't want to go there in the beginning of our conversation and they're willing to go there towards after we've been talking for a while, or literally it isn't until we're deep into it that the memory even comes back. I don't know which one it is. But more often than not, and you know this, experiencers have had some kind of incident when they were younger.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes, it seems to be that people don't have a one-off.
No, it's not a one-off.
And it's usually a lifetime of very complex things. Now, here, let me ask. I don't want to ask
and
a
their
leading...
family, too.
Their family. So I don't want to ask a leading question, but I'll tell you what I've been seeing to a very strong degree is the people who have the UFO contact experience, not everyone. If you really ask them, sometimes through hypnotic regression, if you ask them, they'll say, I chose to be here. In this lifetime, this incarnation. I chose to be here and play this role. Have you heard that at all?
Yes. Are you taking me to that chapter in my book?
I haven't. Keep going. So this is the chapter in my book too. So please keep going.
Oh, well, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's your. I'm interviewing you. So yeah.
This chapter is the hardest chapter for me to talk about, Mike. In my book, You Have the Right to Talk About Aliens, there is a chapter where I share almost word for word what came through in a regression that I had in Virginia. When was this regression? 2017. So the regression was September 6th.
I have a 2017 regression. Keep going.
It was September 6th, 2017. And then 10 days later, I got the first X on my tush.
Well, you just dropped a big bomb there too. So we're going to talk about that at some point. What I also but let's finish the first thing here first. I've read your book. I've heard you talk. Let me put this. I have not read your book completely. Okay. I've listened to your talks. I have the worst habit. I start the book in the middle and I jump around.
Yeah, I do that too. Thank you. Well, thank you for jumping around in my book. I appreciate it. That's a good thing.
Now, let's finish the thought about what you learned in this hypnosis session.
So I'm ambivalent. I included it with my ambivalence, and I'm still ambivalent about talking about it because I don't know what hypnosis is. Is it real? Is it not real? I do not know. But I've come to the conclusion now that I don't need to know. All I care about is it helpful? And oh, yes, it's very helpful. So that's all I'm concerned with right now. When was it? I went to Roswell in 2016. It was an impromptu, out of the blue wasn't even expecting to go to Roswell. I got a phone call, we're going to Roswell. And I was really excited. And I had something happen there when I was in a hotel room with my partner at the time. And it really messed me up. And so when I came back to Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., where I was living, I thought, I'll just get better. And this was a time when I was very afraid of the Greys. I thought they were evil. I thought they were messing with me. I thought I was being victimized because back then I did see my life through the lens of victimization. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, my ex-husband's victimized me. The Greys are going to victimize me too. Everybody victimizes me. I've since then changed my perception, and the Greys helped me change that, which changed my life. When I came back after Roswell, and I couldn't shake it, and there was no way I was ever going to let any of my clients know that I was talking to aliens, because I thought that would ruin my practice. I did confide in a friend. And she said, well, I know someone in Virginia who's a regression therapist, and she specializes in experiencers. So I told my partner, this weekend, we're going to Virginia. It's a 3-hour drive one way, and I'm going to get regressed, and then we're going to come back. And he said, all right. And I wanted him to come with me, and I'm so glad he did. He's open-minded, skeptical, but open-minded.
Which you should be appropriately skeptical. Sure.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great.
Very logical man, but very open-minded and supportive of me. And he sat in on my session, and I'm really glad he did because he took great notes. And what came out in this session were the Greys. And also, it's so hard to talk about because there's aspects of this whole ET reality that just sound insane and crazy. Some things crazier than others. For instance, the hybridization program sounds crazy.
Yep.
But what I'm about to describe to you, to me, sounds even crazier, and it's hard for me to say. Am I fully convinced that this is my truth? I don't know. But what came through is the first thing that happened all of a sudden when I went under. There was this group of beings that looked more human than not, very human looking, but they were not earthly humans. It was obvious they were from another civilization. And they're all looking at me. And they're wearing like these dark outfits. I don't know if they're one piece or not. And I actually drew a picture of them. And they had a triangle on their chest. And they're very nice, and it feels like there's some kind of governmental group or some kind of a head of the country kind of like thing. I wasn't sure. And they're like, hi. I'm like, hello. And they apologized. They said, we're really sorry. I said, for what? And they said, we didn't know it was going to be this hard.
Oh, keep going.
And they said what happened was we needed 3 volunteers to come to Earth, and you volunteered. And so that's why you're there. But we did not expect it to be this difficult. And so I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know what to do with that information. I'm like, am I imagining this or is this real? And looking back on it, those beings are very, very similar to the beings I saw when I was a little girl, when I was 10 years old. The same kind of like unitard thing on, more human looking than not. So I wonder, are those the beings that I was interacting with when I was a little girl? The one that told me that I have a mission or something to do. And at that time, when I was 10 or 12, I didn't realize what that meant. They told me I had to get to work, and I didn't know what that meant. So there's other things that came out, too, in the regression, a past life and some other stuff that was very interesting. And do I call myself a hybrid? No, I think we're all hybrids. I think we all have ET DNA, some of us more activated than others, some of us with more ET DNA than others. Do I say that I'm here from another planet or another star system. No, I don't talk like that. That is not my definition. That's not my self-definition. It is the definition of others, and I respect that. I do not pass any judgment, but I don't feel comfortable talking like that about myself. I just want to portray myself as a human being who's made ET contact. I probably have many times without even conscious memory of it, maybe before I even came to this life, maybe also when I was an infant that I don't remember. But I don't want to cloud my message with any kind of even more bizarre story. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, my word. I understand.
I have a message, and I have to be I'm very careful about how I portray this message. I want to kind of portray it in a way that it's, that people can kind of absorb it and taste it and feel it without it being insane. If I bring into my story all of a sudden, yeah, I'm from another planet and I was sent here because I volunteered to be here, I'm like, I think I'm going to lose all credibility. I don't even know if I believe it. So that is my little mind F. So even experiencers who've come a long way in accepting what's happened to them, because I've lost the fear. I'm no longer afraid of them. But I'm still struggling with other aspects of my memories, the hybridization program. I've gotten a lot of information about the hybridization program. I've been shown a baby in a tube.
And this was in the hypnosis session, or is this a memory you have?
No, this is conscious.
Okay.
So all the memories that I talk about are conscious memories. I like talking about conscious memories.
Sure.
I don't like talking about my hypnosis memories because I don't know what they are.
I agree.
I do not judge anyone who does. I just don't like to do it. So I'm just trying to help people understand what's happening through my own conscious memories.
So listeners of this show may or may not know, but I had a hypnosis session where something very, very, very similar emerged, where it was me essentially saying, I didn't realize it would be this hard being here.
Oh my gosh.
So you began this whole thing saying like, oh, it sounds like word for word from the chapter of my book. You said that to me, and then I can say to you, well, that sounds like word for word what happened to me in my hypnosis session. I had the same hypnosis session. I went to two different hypnotherapists. The same exact story emerged in both. Mary Rodwell hypnotized me in October of 2017, so 1 month after you. And then in August of 2018, less than a year later, I had a session with Yvonne Smith, and the exact same story emerged. The way I describe it is like watching you watch TV and there's like, oh, I've seen this TV show before. And then you watch the whole TV show again. That's what it felt like. It felt like it was frame for frame, the same television episode.
Oh, what did the beings look like? Or did you see them?
They were, this is interesting. So, now you're interviewing me. We're doing the thing. I'll talk. So
Can't help it. I have my
okay.
own
No,
interview
that's okay.
show.
Yeah. So I had an experience where I was sleeping outside on the side of the road. I'll tell this quick. To tell this story properly, I could eat up 45 minutes. But and I was sleeping outside under the stars, and there was something on a hilltop nearby. And I looked up at this thing and I said, that looks just like a landed flying saucer. And then I had this weird night, and there were lights nearby that didn't make any sense. And then there was a coyote howling, like was loud.
Oh, okay. Did you think it was a house in the hills?
I thought it was a big round house. Yes, you've seen my talk. Yeah, so there's the big round house. It looked like a big round house on top of the hill.
All right, I remember this.
Mm-hmm. And then, but it was like, there's no house there. I went and looked it up on Google Maps. There's no house there. And so but that story always bugged me. And there was no fear associated with this story. So I was very comfortable looking into this through hypnosis. So I did a session with Mary Rodwell, and she said, let's look at what you need to address. What story do you need to focus on? This story emerged. Now, let me back up a little bit. So I was at a house in New Hampshire when I did this session with Mary Rodwell. And there was a bunch of people there, a bunch of experiencers were there. It was this one fellow who like had everyone at this house, and it was kind of a big a bunch of people stayed at this house, lots of guest rooms. I actually ended up sleeping on the floor of his office in a sleeping bag in a sleeping pad, which was fine. But I had the window open. In the morning, Mary and I were going to get up early to do the session while the house was still quiet. So we were started at about 7 in the morning, but it was still just before the sun was coming up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get out of bed here and then I'm going to do this session. There was an owl hooting out my window loud the minutes before I started the session. So it was a barred owl. And now this is, you talked all about your doubts and your challenges to say, yes, this is, hypnosis gives you a definitive answer. I don't think it does. I can say, this is the way I like to say it. I say, I was confronted with a story. A story emerged under hypnosis. I cannot tell you whether that story is true or false.
Why are we getting the same story?
Oh, we're not, it's not just you and me. The other people have gotten it too, yeah.
I know. What is that, something in the collective consciousness we're tapping into, or is it?
Or is it true? Is it literally true? Is one way to ask, So is it just something that is a So for my own self, all I can say is I was confronted with a story. I'm going to look at the story, without attachment,
right?
Because if I get attached to it, then I do the thing where the story's too crazy.
It's too crazy.
It's like, whoa, it's too crazy. I can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
But if it was a Twilight Zone episode, I could totally be comfortable watching it. If it was a TV show or if it was some...
Yeah, but it's you in the Twilight episode.
But it's me. Oh my! And then once it's yourself, good grief. So all of a sudden in this hypnosis session, it feels like I'm out of body. I'm not in my body anymore. I'm in my sort of soul essence, or my corporal, or like my energetic essence, like goes into the ship. Mm-hmm. And then I'm walking down this hall, and I'm a gray alien with these other gray aliens. I'm the same height as them. I look down at my hands.
Oh, you're a gray.
I'm like, I'm a gray. Like, this is, how weird is this? It doesn't make any, but it felt really normal.
Yeah.
I don't think I was a gray alien. I mean, I wasn't even like if I went on board this craft, it was clear I wasn't in my physical body. My physical body was still sleeping out under the stars in a sleeping bag.
Yeah, but what if you're just seeing an alternate life of yours, an alternate consciousness that's happening at the same time?
All of these questions are worth asking, and I don't have an answer. But I went through the process of saying to them, so I said it to them. They didn't say it to me. I said to them, you didn't tell me it would be this hard being here. You didn't tell me about pain. You didn't tell me about loneliness. You didn't tell me about depression. You never told me it would be this hard being here. And they said, you volunteered for this, and now is the time. And so I got super emotional. Oh my gosh, you can hear me in both sessions. I'm like ranting and screaming and and poor Yvonne is just like, Mike, why are you so emotional? And I scream, they want me to play some role. And then in the aftermath of that experience, if you look at the calendars, that event happened. I slept on the side of the road on March 10th, 2013. It took me a day to drive home. I looked up the Google Maps. I called up the MUFON state representative of Utah and asked if there was any activity in that area. They didn't have any reports. It was the next day, so they didn't have any reports. And then the day after, which would have been March 12th, 2013, 48 hours later, I started writing the blue book, The Messengers.
Ah.
So I'm there. I scream, they want me to play some role. And then 48 hours later, I start writing the book, The Messengers.
Okay.
So I had already published the book when I did the session with Mary, right? So, but the event took place in 2013. This is like layer upon layer upon layer, and to describe it properly takes a lot of work.
It is layered.
And then it still sounds crazy, no matter how I try to back out and say like, okay, maybe it's just a story. I was presented with this thing, but I can't hide that part of it because it's so integral to my own, I want to say my own confirmation or my own awakening. Like, I'm open to the fact that there's potential for the mystery of reincarnation. And so, but like that's another level. If I'm being reincarnated from some other being from some other form of reality, whether that's in a different planet or a different dimension. But it had such a powerful emotional impact on me that I have to address. So I can address the emotions of it better than I can address I can say, wow, that really shook me up, that story. And in the bigger picture, it made me calmer. If that makes sense.
Because it answers some questions as to why you know what you know.
This is more of an insight into me, because it produces an air of mystery and magic that is so rich and so wonderful in its story, that I can wrap my mind around it better that way than I can if I try to logically say, is it real or not real? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you and I let go of logic trying to figure out all of this stuff? I mean, you just have to release logic when you're trying to understand what's happening. And that's really, I think, the hardest thing for people to do is to just suspend logic. But that's what we're asking people to do. Why do you think some people are, yes, I'm Palladian and I'm here from Pallades and I'm an ambassador, and they have no problem saying it. And then you and I are like, well, I don't know, maybe kind of, I don't want to talk about it.
So here's my answer to that. I think those people who are very forthright and say I'm an ambassador. I know people who say that.
Yeah, me too.
And they're like, I can't say what their truth is, right?
No, absolutely not.
So I'm like, I'm right there. I'm very empathetic. We talked about this in the unrecorded part. I'm very empathetic. Like, man, people tell me a story, I'm right there with them. Even the stories I have trouble believing. Like, everyone there's a term, I don't like the term, but you know what I mean. There's a crazy line in the sand. You can walk right up to that crazy line, and then stepping over that crazy line, oh, that stuff over there is too crazy. So that's right. My crazy line drifts back and forth. It changes. But so the people who are the ambassador from the Pleiades, I think that they can connect with some people in a very real way, and they can tell a story that will have an emotional impact and can open people up in a different way than you and I can tell a story. I feel like I know I've opened people up because they send me letters and tell me, yes. I mean, I know the work you're doing, and I know you're getting that. So I think that this is a funny way to say it, but I mean, I'm going to use a phrase that's going to sound very lofty, but there are many paths to God. Let me put it this way, there's many paths and they all lead to the same destination. So I think you and I are on our own little path. We can meet people along the way. They can resonate with our stories. The person who feels they're ambassador from the Pleiades, they're on their own path. It's not my path.
Right.
And I'm not trying to judge too much what they're doing on their path. And they can influence and interact with people and share their story. Yeah. So I think there are many paths. That would be my answer to how do you make sense of the people who tell these stories.
Yes, that's a good way. Many paths and also many audiences. Like each audience has its own frequency. So that's how I see it. Every message, everything you say, everything that comes out of your mouth has a frequency to it. And so it could very well be that the people who believe the Palladian ambassadors, they are of a particular frequency that we're not 100% aligned with. So we kind of stand on the outside and we look and we don't judge and we go, all right, okay, if your message is about love, if you're teaching love, I don't have a problem with what you're doing at all. So if you want to say you're an ambassador and you're just telling everybody, let's all love each other as much as possible, I'm like, great, you're a great ambassador.
Exactly. And then I've met the people who have had the very dark, nightmarish malevolent experiences, and I'm very empathic, so I can get pulled right into this story. I can feel the emotions. I trust them in their storytelling. When I have to, like, I don't know the deeper story behind that, but I am not going to say, if that's their story, let me put it this way. So if that's their story, I am very empathetic and my heart goes out to them, but that is a part of this phenomena, and I don't want to be. So here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to say they're wrong.
Oh, no. No, I would never say that. No, I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't matter. I'm really focused on helping experiencers. I want them to realize that if you're going through any kind of anguish, most experiencers go through anguish. I have met a few that were never anguished over this at all. From the moment they saw their first ET when they were a little kid, they're like, I'm a believer, no issue. But that's highly unusual.
That's very rare, yeah.
Most of us need help. And so I'm here. My focus right now is to offer help, because if you don't deal with what happened, it is going to negatively affect every single arena of your life. This is not something you can just compartmentalize like I tried to do and pretend like you can have good relationships and a successful career and everything is fine and you're really happy and you're fulfilled and you're in touch with your purpose when you have all this ET stuff back here and you're trying to ignore it. If you're not going to incorporate it into your current life, it's not going to align with you in a very positive way. And that's exactly what happened to me. I went through abusive relationships. I had a few businesses. I was never happy. I was always looking for happiness outside of myself, always. And then finally one day I realized, what I'm looking for has been inside of me the whole time. And this also came with my acceptance of my ET contact. Dealing with my ET contact and actually not being afraid of the grays and why the X was put on my tush has changed my life for the better. The grays have really helped me pop out of the victimization vibration so I can feel much more empowered. I didn't feel empowered at all, even though from the outside it looked like I had a really nice life. A really nice, very successful life. But from the inside, I was like, something's missing. Something's not right. Like, I just don't feel right. And I never equated that with the ET situation. Now I can see, how can I be complete and try and live like my ultimate, most fulfilled, maximized potential version of myself when I have this huge, deep secret that I'm talking to aliens my whole entire life? If I don't incorporate that into my current consciousness and my current awareness, I am not living an aligned life. But that's my life. Not everybody has ETs on their path of authenticity. I did.
And I seem to too. And it was the owls that allowed me to look into my own experience. I was hit with so many owl sightings between about 2006 and about 2010.
The owls.
I was hit with so many owl events that it forced me to look into my UFO experiences, which is, it takes a big fat book for me to explain how that all worked out in my life. So yeah, it was like that was my wake up call was the owls. I call the owls an alarm clock because of that, because they were my wake up call where I had to wake up to this, and I was in a place of denial. I was successful at what I was doing. And my life just flipped over, changed completely. And
for the better, if you can use the term better. I don't know. I really don't like that term. But for me, a lot of really wonderful things have happened since I've come to terms with my ET contact, and I'm not afraid of it anymore.
And I can say my life has been richer in a way that I never would have. Richer in an emotional, in a spiritual, in a kind of like, this is a genuine mystery. It is a genuine mystery. Like, I don't have an answer to what is really, truly going on behind the veil. But wow, is the magic of this mystery seductive. And I feel like I have been pulling on these threads in a very creative way, as best I can. to the point where I literally wrote a fiction novel, trying to address some of these ideas. And people reach out to me, and you know exactly what I mean. People reach out to you, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not offering help. All I can do for the most part is say, you are not alone. And I'll tell you, that's probably 90% of what people need to hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When Kathy told me, you're not the only one, I was like, I'm not? Kathy Martin. I mean, she's the one that helped me.
Sure. Yeah. I know Kathleen very well.
Yeah. She's the one that I reached out to after I got the second X, because I had an existential crisis. And I was like, I need help. It was the first time in my life that I actually asked for help, but I didn't know who was going to help me. And then it happened to be her, and she changed my life. And because of her, I'm an experiencer advocate today. Because of Kathy Martin.
You need to go. I'm going to have to let you go here in a little bit.
What are we going to do? Are we done?
Let's do a little follow-up at some point, even if it's just a short interview anytime in the next couple weeks.
Well, wait a minute. It's 3:00. Do you think we could finish up by 3:30?
Sure, another half hour?
3:30, like another 25 minutes?
Great.
Can we do that?
Good, okay, good. This is Mike, and I'm chiming in during the editing. Now, you just heard me interrupt the interview because at the beginning, Sev and I agreed to just keep on talking. Let's not worry about the fact that we totally lost the first 55 minutes of what was proving to be a very good interview. And then she gave me a cutoff time, said, I got to be done by this time. So that's when I chimed in. I said, okay, you got to go. This is the time. And she said, no, let's keep talking. So we kept talking, and we talked a little bit more, but I chopped that off, and now we're going to roll right back into the interview. Here goes. You've talked about the X on your butt a few times here. Now, we should tell that story, and I'm sure this is exactly the story you've told so many times. Are you tired of telling it?
Oh, no. Okay, it's an important story in my life.
Let's hear it.
Mm-hmm. All right, it was 2017, and I just moved here from the inner banks of North Carolina from Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. And I moved to a very tiny town out in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of hard to be here because I was just used to Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., and all the activity and everything, and none of that is here. So I came here with my partner then, because he took an early retirement, and we started a yacht charter company, because where I am is the sailing capital of North Carolina. So we came here to do that. And once we did that, then he literally sailed off into the sunset. And so that's what brought me here. And I'm still here. So it was the second morning that I was here, and I was unpacking dishes in the kitchen. This is after Roswell. Unpacking dishes in the kitchen, and I felt something bite my butt, and it hurt. So I yelled over to him, I think something bit my butt. Will you look at it? And he's like, yeah. So I walk over to the living room, and I bend over, pull down my shorts, bend over. And he's looking, and he's not saying anything. And I'm intuitively getting these hits that something's wrong. And I don't know why, but I feel like it has something to do with the grays, but I have no logical reason to say this. So finally, he's not saying anything. I'm like, well, did something bite my butt? And he said, yeah, something bit your butt, but there's also a red X. A red X. He took a picture, and there was this red X on my left tush. It was about 1.5 inches to 2 inches wide, and it was composed of 9 little red dots, and they're equidistant. This X has been around the world, and all kinds of people have measured it. And when I ran my finger over it, I couldn't feel it. So he's stunned, and I'm stunned, but I knew it was the grays. And I didn't want to deal with it. So I said to him, okay, we're going to pretend like we never saw this. He's like, what? We're going to pretend like we never saw this red X on my tush. And he's looking at me like I'm insane, but this is my MO. This is what I've been doing my whole life. Ignore it. ignore the weird geometric shapes on my skin, ignore skin missing, ignore weird lights in the hallway, ignore things I can't see touching me, ignore all of it. Decades. So this X was going to go right there in that same filing cabinet. Ignore.
I have that same filing cabinet. Mine is full.
Yeah.
Took a lot of work to empty that filing cabinet.
I know. Yeah, finally it does get full, and then you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. And I tried to forget it. I did my best, but I thought about it a lot. And then 9 days later, ding, I wake up in my bedroom, fully alert. I describe it like being dropped from another dimension into this dimension, completely alert, no sleepiness, no grogginess, no nothing. And all of a sudden, I see this movie in my mind's eye, this download, where I was on this hospital-type bed in this room that I did not recognize, and it was dimly lit, and I was on my side, and I couldn't move my arms, and I couldn't move my legs, and I felt paralyzed. And I sensed that there was something behind me. So I could move my neck, and when I turned around, standing right behind me, literally just like 2 inches from me, was a gray doing something to my back. And we locked eyes. And I describe it in my book. It was like looking into 2 pools of black oil. And I was terrified. One aspect of what I experienced that I think made me even more terrified was that this gray did not say anything to me. And I had been in contact with the grays before, and there was always telepathic communication. So this time when the gray didn't even have any telepathic information for me, that freaked me out even more. So I turned my head back around and ding, my eyes pop open in my bedroom. So I go downstairs and I wait for him to wake up, and he always got up before I did. Always. Not this time. So I go downstairs and I'm very nervous. Actually, I'm scared because if there's another X on me, I know that I'm not going to be able to take it. Like, it'll just be too much for me. I won't be able to handle it. And I was afraid about my reaction. And so I'm waiting for him to come down. And then I know I could have looked in the mirror myself, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to see it. I wanted someone else to be with me if there was another X there, because it was so scary. So he came downstairs, and I asked him, did anything weird happen last night? And so this is after Roswell, so he knows what I'm talking about. And he goes, no. I said, all right, was I missing at all? Was I gone at all from the bed? No. You did not see anything? No. He's like, okay, what happened? So I told him my memory. And then there's also another aspect to this, which I had never known in any of my other ET contacts. I knew that when I was on that bed in that room, I knew I was on the moon. So I tell him this, and then I ask him to check my tush, and I bend over, and there's just silence. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. There's another X. Is there another X? He's like, yeah, there's another X, just like the first one. This time it's on your right tush, directly across the first one, and they look just alike. So all of a sudden, I'm presented with something that completely changes my reality. And it felt like I had an existential crisis, because at that moment I realized decades of ET contact that I tried to ignore was real. And then I started asking a million questions. Who am I? What am I doing talking to aliens in the middle of the night? Who are we as the human race? What are we doing? What's going on? I felt like I knew nothing. I had answers to nothing. I was floating like in a void of nothing. And it was very scary. So I started to cry out of just frustration and fear. And then I pulled myself together. And that's when I said, I need help. Like, I can't continue like this anymore. But at that time, I had no idea who I could call for help with ET contact, because I was not in the world at all. I wasn't watching movies. I wasn't reading books. I didn't know who anybody was because I was so afraid of it. Like, looking at the cover of Whitley Strieber's book was just put me over the edge. I couldn't look at the cover of that book. So I didn't want anything to do with UFOs or aliens. Nothing. I didn't even know there was anyone in the world that could help me with this. So I just told myself, as I always do, it'll organically happen. I'm just going to wait. And it did. It organically happened. I was watching the movie Unacknowledged by Dr. Stephen Greer. And when it was over, I'm like, that's it. I have to find somebody. So I went over to the computer and I'm like, I have to send a picture of this X to someone, but to whom? And I heard in my head, MUFON. And I had no idea what that was. I'm like, MUFON? So I Googled it, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a real thing. It's a mutual UFO network. And that's where there's
my gosh. There's a fly on your camera, right?
When I'm talking about MUFON.
Oh, how funny. Let's.
You can't even see me.
I can't see you at all. There you are. I can see you over the edge of the fly. Okay, there's the fly. So, okay.
Right.
The cover up.
And then, and I saw a picture of Kathleen Martin. I didn't know who she was. And I said, okay, but she's the one that's going to help me. I knew it. So I emailed her and she responded right away and we talked. She said she'd never seen an X like this before. And we talked. She was very generous. We talked for about an hour and a half, very generous with her time. And that phone call changed my life. She validated everything. And then I asked her, well, Kathy, what am I supposed to do with all the information the Greys have given me about the hybridization program and about the potential fate of humankind? And she said, I can't tell you that. You have to decide. And I said, because I see myself in my mind's eye on stage talking about it. But back then, that was an insane vision because there was no way I was going to come out. So to see that was like, what is happening? And I also expressed to her my fear of the government. What if I come out? The men in black and all that. And so she said, well, it's true. People are harassed. And she told me some stories. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. She helped me a lot. We said goodbye. I called my mother. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. But, we talked about this and we talked about that. And just a few minutes into my conversation with my mother on a landline, the phone went dead. I'm like, oh my God, the government knows me. Oh my God, it's the government. Oh my God, here it goes. And so I called my partner. I'm like, the landline's dead. Did we pay the bill? He goes, yes. Why would it be dead? Oh, I don't know. So it came on a few minutes later. It had never died before and never died again. And then also, Mike, that night, I had my very first MILAB experience.
You can tell me. Let me start over.
Okay.
I'm going to please tell me. What you're saying is nothing I have not heard from plenty of other people. So
yes.
Yeah, this is not stretching me at all. This is this is right in the core of the type of research that I've been doing. So keep going.
Yeah.
Please.
MILAB, military abductions. And so I didn't know about them. I didn't really even know the term MILAB. But that night, something happened, because when I woke up in the morning, I had this intense recollection, like this very, very, very clear download that I was in this like office, governmental type of boring looking office with boring colors and boring men all wearing the same thing with short haircuts and looked like they were in their 30s or so. And it was a man standing next to me, and we were looking at a poster. I drew a picture of it. And the poster was the flight path of a UFO. And along the flight path of the UFO were all these mathematical equations, scientific equations. And I have a biology degree from Loyola University, so I'm familiar with the scientific equations and things. But when the next day, I couldn't remember what they were. So I'm looking at this poster, and the man asks me, when does this spaceship attain its K point? And then I don't remember anything. I'm back in my room. So I was talking with Grant Cameron at the time, and I emailed him. I said, Grant, I just had this weird experience. It was like government-like, and this man asked me about K point, and I have a scientific degree. Well, I think I have to Google K point. I don't remember. And he sent me information about this lady who made contact with the Greys, and they were teaching her about the K point. I've heard the K point mentioned when I was watching the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and the sport where I think it's called ski jump, where they jump off this platform and they go really high. And I remember hearing the announcer talk about the skier's K point. So it's a real thing. I'm not quite sure if it's the highest point he reaches or in the air or some equivalent point on the ground. I'm not sure. So it's a real thing. And since then, I've had several more MILAB experiences. My MILAB experiences are much harder to talk about than my ET contact. And I've kind of been saving them for last. Because once again, it's like this can't be real. Some of the experiences that I've had with MILAB, one of them being absolutely horrendous mental torture.
I've heard this many times.
And a couple of them being neutral, and one of them being uncomfortable, and one of them being torture. And the neutral ones were they were giving me information, or they wanted some information from me. The mental torture one, which is really hard for me to talk about, had to do with them wanting me to do something. And it was psychic in nature. And I refused. I wouldn't do it because I knew that people were going to die. And I refused. So when I refused, this is torture. And I actually thought I was going to die. I thought they were going to kill me because I wouldn't do it. So I resigned to that. I'm like, okay, kill me. Because they were holding guns. And right when I thought I was going to die, I closed my eyes and I said, I love you. And then I waited and nothing happened. And I opened my eyes and I could feel, I sensed from them, it was two men. They were thinking, oh, if we can't hold her life over her, then we can't manipulate her at all. Like, we can't get what we want from her. If even her life, even when we threaten her with her life, she still won't do it. I felt like I was being let go or left alone. And that was my last memory.
And then did you wake up in bed after that?
When that came, I wasn't dreaming, I was resting. And when I came to, I cried for at least an hour. I cried so hard that I was crying into my pillow because it was so loud. And it was for like an hour. And I'm like, what is happening? Why am I crying this hard over a memory? It must have really happened. I can't just spontaneously cry like this. Like I was crying from the deepest parts of my soul. That's a hard story. I haven't even told you how they mentally tortured me. But so I don't talk about this often because it's still emotional and it's still really hard to believe. It's just really hard to believe, even for me, even though I can feel it. I feel it. It feels real enough for an emotion to be evoked, but it's still hard to believe.
As we're talking, it's people, I can see you. I understand. You're obviously, one of my questions on the list here was like, do people cry when you talk to them? And this is something that happens often where people cry. I've hosted this show on and off. I've broken into tears more than once as a host. So the emotions of this, understandably, this is right at the edge of what I can, like, we're dealing with a genuine mystery here. And I'm so empathetic to the emotional side of this mystery that it tells me that something very real is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, how to say this, the same way that the Bigfoot can walk through the forest and leave footprints and the footprints vanish, there's a very physical aspect to it, and there's a very metaphysical aspect to this. But the emotions are so real. The hypnosis session that I talked about, wow, did I cry during that.
You can't fake that. Like, that's coming from something real.
Exactly, yes. So you can't.
Cannot fake this.
Yeah. So where does this fit in to you working to help people as far as the timeline of your life? Like the MyLab experiences that you're talking about, how recent were these?
Oh, the MyLab experience was the first time I talked to Kathy, which was probably 2017, 2018, something like that. And continued, I would say, until, continued for a couple of years. By 2020, I wasn't having any more conscious memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I speak with a lot of experiencers who have MyLab. And because of my experiences, I can help them because I've been there. And there's never a happy MyLab story.
I agree. Yeah.
It's either neutral or it sucks.
Yeah. And no matter how bad the UFO contact stories are, the MyLab experiences are worse. That's my sense.
Yeah. And then I also have memories of, I don't know if this was MyLab, but there were like medical type of people, humans.
Mm-hmm.
I was undergoing some kind of medical examination by a human. And then the next thing I know, I am asked to heal sickly hybrid babies by a human.
Healing them through like energetic means?
Yeah, by putting my hands on them. And so the first one that was brought to me, this is a human man doctor asking me to heal these sickly hybrid babies. Half human, half something else. I don't know what it was. And then there was a female nurse also in the room. And so they brought me this one. It was this little baby. It almost looked Asian. It had a lot of really dark hair. It was really cute. And it was heavily swaddled, really heavily swaddled in cloth. So I put my hands on it. And they're like, okay, good. And they took it away, and then they brought me another one. So I put my hands on that. But this one started to roll off the table. So when it was rolling off the table, I grabbed all of that cloth. And when I did, I saw its body, and its neck was like the size of my pinky. It was like its head was normal, but the rest of it was skinny, skinny, tiny. And I went, and then ding, I'm done. Like, I don't remember anything else. So how many hybridization programs are there? So these are sick ones. Are they sick because the humans got involved? Do the humans and ETs have their own hybridization program going on outside of the one that I'm involved in with the Greys? And it seems like when humans get involved, they mess everything up, because I don't see sickly hybrids with the Greys when I'm with them, but they have these sickly hybrids with these humans.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? How many hybridization programs are there?
Oh, again, we're dealing with a genuine mystery, and my mind's racing, asking pretty much the same questions in my mind that you're vocalizing here, and
And so I have a lot of interesting pieces. I haven't quite put them all together in my puzzle yet, but I have a lot of pieces, just a lot of experiences. And talking to experiencers actually sometimes helps me put together my own pieces. Talking to experiencers, I get validation too, just as they get validation.
Yes, so this gets very complicated, and this is the challenge of, like, I'm doing research, I'm trying to write books. The books are very challenging to write. In your book, you wrote this. It's one sentence, and I noted it here in my notes. You wrote, "I thought ET abductions happen in a linear fashion with the parameters of a three-dimensional world." And then you go on to basically say, like, it's more mysterious than that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I don't even remember writing that sentence.
It's a beautiful sentence.
Thank you. I like it. I don't even remember. Wow.
Yeah, I'll read it again. "I thought ET abductions happen in a linear fashion within the parameters of a three-dimensional world." And they don't. And that makes the research so difficult. And what it does is it just logical, linear thinking, three-dimensional people try to follow it, and they just get lost. They just get dead-ended, and they just shut down because something more unusual is taking place than what we can easily comprehend in our 3D world. And that has been the challenge.
And that's the beauty of it, too. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the beauty of it is that for those of us who've had this interdimensional, multidimensional experience, we're awakened, our consciousness is expanded, and we realize, oh my God, there's more to us than just what I'm touching and feeling. And I had an experience through those other parts of me. And so these experiences can really serve to strengthen your psychic abilities and also help you become more aligned with your purpose as to why you're here. That's how I see these interdimensional, multidimensional experiences with the ETs. I see that's how that they help us.
I agree so strongly with that because to a linear thinker, these experiences are absurd. When you have the direct experience, you are forced to confront that absurdity. Do you know what a Zen koan is in meditation? Mm-hmm. So the Buddhist monk would have the students meditate on something that's impossible. And this is the path to enlightenment. I'm some Buddhist scholar would kind of, that's close, but not quite right. So a Zen koan is like, one of them is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And you would ask the student to meditate on that thought. But there is no sound of one hand clapping. It can't be a sound of one hand clapping. You can't clap with one hand. So you're forced to confront that absurdity, and then the student achieves enlightenment on this path. So I think that the entirety of the UFO contact experience could be a complex Zen koan that's forcing us to confront this other reality. Like people who have the near-death experience say, like, oh, I went to this timeless realm where time didn't exist the way we think it does. And, you know, I spoke with my dead grandmother, or I spoke with Jesus, or I spoke with this flower, or I spoke to a butterfly. There is in a magical garden, and then the garden turned into a white field of just endless euphoric love in a magical white realm. So you have these experiences in the near-death experience that are in this realm that we can say, oh, that's heaven. That's this other realm that we're not in right now. Mm-hmm. But we are in this realm right now, and we are having these experiences that are outside the bounds of normal time and space and normal understanding and normal linear logic. It is beyond the parameters of our 3D world. Mm-hmm. And through that process, not everyone, people can gain enlightenment or have a transformational experience or a Kundalini awakening or a spiritual awakening or tap into their higher self or begin doing selfless work that they never would have done without these things. So this is what I'm seeing in my work, and these patterns are there, they're consistent, but at the same time I'm doing the same thing that you and I have talked with this whole thing, where like I'm fighting to, like, is my voice valid to say this? Like, I'm saying something big, is it? But do you know what I'm saying? Like it's a hard to...
I never thought of my voice as not being valid.
I do. I do.
Because I know what happened is real, so that's my validity.
And I know the stories that I am hearing have a power to them. That is my validity.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't need any more experiences. Like I've had plenty. And then people are sharing their stories with me, and I can tap into them so empathetically that I can live their experience through them.
Yeah.
And it is the power of the story, this mystery, this mystery that does not happen in a linear fashion, and it is beyond the parameters of our 3D world. And I have changed because of those stories.
Yes. Yeah, me too. And I like the change. I'm grateful for the change.
And I like if I had to relive my life, I don't know how I would change things. I think I would be really great if some things weren't as hard as they were in my life. But that's the story. Like we're given the story, and there's a power to the story, and I am grateful to the, like, if I'm grateful for the drama, and it allows me to tap into these heightened mystical experiences in a way that I never could have had I have not been knocked down by other experiences in my life. Does that make sense?
Yes. I completely understand what you're saying. I have the same experience. And it's continuous. I'm still having ET contact. I'm sure you're still having interdimensional, multidimensional experiences. And I'm still learning. I'm still blooming. I'm still peeling. It's endless.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it would just end. I'm like, when is this peeling going to end? I'm like, oh, it's never going to end.
But that's life, right? I mean, that's the challenge of life, right?
I know. And then they're like, life goes on and on and on and on and on. And you live forever, forever, forever. And I'm like, good Lord, that just sounds exhausting. Sometimes you just want to get out.
But we're here someday we'll get off the wheel of life, I guess. Isn't that...
I don't know. Maybe we won't.
Or we'll live
But
some
we
other...
won't feel exhausted. Maybe just being a human is exhausting.
Well, that was my... You're like, right? Like, why didn't you tell me it would be this hard being here? Wherever they are seems to be this realm that doesn't have... That's right.
We circled back to that.
Yeah, wherever they are, like they don't...
didn't they know? Why didn't they know how hard it was going to be? That's my question. Like, what do you mean? You just threw me to the wolves?
Maybe the same way that the fish can't really truly understand what the mountain goat experiences on a mountaintop, right? Because they're totally in two different realms.
I know. A completely different world. And so that's how I think about our world, is like there's so many different worlds living in this one world. The world of the goldfish, the world of the shark, the world of the goat. They're completely different worlds. Like so many animals out there don't even know that humans even exist.
Yeah.
There are animals out there in nature that live not even knowing that there's a human being on this planet. Yeah,
I mean the ants in the forest, they can be 3 feet away from the path and they'll never know what it means. Yeah, if a human walks by.
And I think about that often. How many different realities there are on this one earth? An infinite amount of realities. And we're all trying to get along with our own reality. We're all trying to my reality is this. I have my own rules and I have my own beliefs. And this is your reality. And we're all trying to get along. But some of the realities are just so different. We just can't get along. And no one wants to change their reality. This is my reality and I'm sticking to it. Well, I'm all about let's change. That's why I'm speaking out. I'm like, there has to be a change. And the ETs are here to help us make the change. The ETs are here because we're at a crisis. We're at a crisis point. What are we going to do?
And we're at a crisis in our human evolution. We're at the crisis on our planetary. I mean, I did a lot of outdoor work. I feel very strongly that nature is very fragile.
Yeah, you've seen that.
and this is interwoven into this bigger mystery too, just beyond our, beyond, I have a memory of seeing a flying saucer, or I have a memory of an orange flash in the night sky. These are mystical experiences, or paranormal experiences, or UFO experiences, or whatever vocabulary word you want to use. But I sense very strongly that we are at a tipping point in human evolution. I'm not alone in this. I can't articulate it as the same way other people can. All I can say, it's a sense. And that, so here's what I'm finding. People who have these experiences are healers. They're doing healing work, whether it's Reiki healing, whether it's spiritual healing, whether they're working as a nurse in a hospital, whether they're working as a psychiatrist or a psychologist. The people who are having these experiences are doing healing work. It's a pattern. It's a very clear pattern in the people who reach out to me. People who reach out to me are having owl experiences too, so I'm looking at a smaller subset of the UFO contact experience, but they are healers. So if people are being contacted by an outside source, their lives have changed, they become healers. Boy, doesn't that say something? They're seeding the earth. I'm using a metaphor in a way. They're seeding the earth with healers, people who are trying to help each other. That, if nothing else, is a positive message.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
How you holding up? You have to go, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh no! Don't you dare apologize. This has been great. I'll put this together. If I have to get back to you, and I'll give you a call or something like that.
Okay, we could do it again if you want.
But I just need if we need anything, it'd just be a few minutes. Here, before we go, tell us how people can get in touch with you.
If an experiencer would like to get in touch with me, my email is sev@planetsev.com. I have a website, planetsev.com, which if you're interested in my soul purpose sessions or in my third eye journey or any of the other sessions I offer. I was also just on a recent episode of Ancient Aliens. And I'm coming up on another History Channel show, The Proof is Out There, that's coming out in about a week or so. Also on Gaia TV and a Canadian documentary. I have a new show, a new interview talk show called Alien Spirit with Sev. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook. I'm really, really easy to find.
Sev, thank you so much. This has been so heartwarming.
I loved it. I can feel it. I agree. It feels like we connected on a deeper level than most interviews feel. And that's probably because you and I have known each other for a while, and also because of our deep experiences. There's just an automatic connection there that goes deeper than a connection with someone who's not an experiencer.
And that's the goal of my show, is to really take the deep dive and not tell the surface stories, to really tell the deeper stories.
Yeah, well, your questions are good. You're very good. Very, very good. You ask really insightful, deep, beautiful questions.
Well, the questions I'm asking for myself for very selfish reasons. Like this is my own search. I'm serious. This is my search. I'm on my journey. I'm seeking. So these are the questions I'm struggling with. So, and it's great to dialogue with someone who's had such a rich set of life experiences.
Thank you, Mike. Are you going to send me promotional materials and stuff to share?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like stickers? You want stickers?
Yes, I want stickers. Of course I want stickers. I love your stickers. I have your book. Your book right there. It's by my bed. It's on my bedside table. Your Messengers. Mm-hmm. It's like the Bible. It's always there. That's a very important book in my world.
Well, Bible is a strong term.
Well, there are some books I call the Bible books of ufology. That is one. Kathy Martin's Captured, and there's some other books.
Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. I had such a good time. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Good, we got it. Whew, that was strong. That was that was really emotional for me.
I felt it too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
And what I'll do is I'll edit this together, and if I need anything or a little extra, I'll make really clear notes, because when I listen to this from beginning to end, I'm going to say people listening are going to need just a little more intro on something. And
probably because we talked an hour first. I think maybe
55 minutes of good. It was a good 55 minutes. That would have been a great show. This was better. The second part was better, though, I got to say.
Well, I didn't expect to cry. So the first hour I didn't cry. The second hour I did cry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
This is Mike chiming in after the editing. First, the thing with the fly. I use a recording app called Riverside, and it is more of a podcast-friendly alternative to applications like Zoom. So, Sev and I could see each other as we spoke, and this is helpful for me. Partly I find I interrupt less if I can see the guest. But the video does not get recorded. All that gets recorded is the audio. So, as we spoke, I could see a little fly buzz around Sev, and it actually landed on the mic a bunch of times. I cleaned out most of the buzzing sounds, but if you listen carefully, it shows up at a few points. Now, let's back up. When we first got on, before our formal conversation and before the unrecorded 55-minute conversation, I asked Sev if there was anything she did not want to talk about. And she thought for a moment, and she said, "Let's not talk about MUFON." Now, there was nothing at all bad in what she wanted to avoid, and I think it was more that, compared to the nuts and bolts mindset of that rather conservative organization, her intuitive work and her experiences are at the far end of that continuum. So if you've made it this far and you listen to the whole show, that should be pretty obvious. So we agreed not to mention MUFON, but Sev did mention it. And it was right when she said that word, when she said MUFON, the fly landed on her camera. So we both saw the dark outline of the fly fill up the entire screen. Like her screen, what had been her face, there was this big black shadow of a fly. And we were both immediately aware of the funny synchronicity around this little moment. Okay, next, on a more serious note, at one point, Sev cried as we spoke. We didn't try to hide this, we talked about it, and I should say, I very nearly broke into tears myself. Here's a question I had written out, but never asked. This was in the list of questions I prepared before we did our interview. I wrote, "Do people cry when you talk to them?" And I was genuinely curious about this because this is something that shows up in the research. Now, during the interview, we both talked about how we sobbed during our 2017 hypnosis sessions, and the reasons and emotions and how this release helped us trust the power of our experiences. And we both were very clear that we did not fully trust the memories that emerged through hypnosis, but we certainly trusted the power of the tears we shed during those hypnosis sessions. Now, I edit heavily for these audio shows, and part of that is my own set of issues. I can stammer, and I can go on and on and on before I get around to making my point or actually asking a question. I mostly edit out my own voice. I want to streamline my presence on these shows. I want to cut back on my role on these shows, and I can do that by cutting out a lot of my own dialogue. Okay, all that said, I do not edit anything that is in any way emotional. I leave in all the chattering stutters and the repeated words. I want the emotions to play out in their awkward rawness. This is a guiding principle for me during the editing. And I've done this leaving in the very emotional stuff. I've done this right from the very beginning, starting back in 2009. One more thing. During our interview, Sev said that she felt she was on the moon. And this happened during one of her experiences. This would have been the second time she found the 9 dots in an X on her body. She clearly said that she felt this happened on the moon. Now, this moon thing might seem hard to believe, but it is very common in these studies. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of very grounded people who tell me they were taken to the moon. This is a pattern, and anyone doing this kind of research will recognize it. Now, what I can say is much of what emerges in witness accounts have some sort of theatrical element. These theatrical elements show up in the stories that people share that have to do with these UFO contact events. Now I consider the owl as a kind of theater, and the UFO occupants, whatever they might be, certainly seem to be able to directly influence or control what we remember or what we see. They seem to be able to project screen memories into the mind of the observer. Now again, the owl is often regarded as a screen memory. Now, given all this, maybe the memory of being on the moon is nothing more than a form of psychic theater. Sev and I also talked about people who claim to be ambassadors from the Pleiades. And after we finished recording, we asked each other if we came across as harsh or judgmental. And I got to listen to the whole interview, and I listened carefully, and I don't think it comes across that way. And I think we were being clear and fair and honest at how we struggle with certain parts of this mystery, and at the same time, how everyone has a different experience. And you have to really listen and allow people to tell their stories. And again, she has a book. It's titled, You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens. This is linked in the show notes, or you can search it on Amazon. And she is the only SEV TOK, so rest assured, you will find it. Okay, one more time with Sev's contact info. You can find her at planetsev.com. That's planetsev, SEV.com, planetsev.com. And her full name has only 6 letters. SEV TOK is spelled SEVTOK, so she is easy to find online. Peace and strength, and thank you so much. Bye now. Owls are somehow connected to UFOs. I don't say that lightly. After over a decade of obsessive investigation, I am convinced of this connection. As strange as it may seem, people are seeing owls in the highly charged moments of a UFO sighting, and within the challenging memories of UFO abduction. This mystery has been the focus of my research. My name is Mike Cleland, and I have explored these connections in my book, The Messengers. At its core, this book is simply a collection of stories, and each is a remarkable real-life experience. The Messengers is also my own story of how owls played a role in my life. It's an exploration into the deeply personal questions that arose from my own contact experiences. Whitley Strieber said this about The Messengers.
It's a wonderful book because it's a book that advances us in consciousness. It advances us. It takes us from where we were before we started reading it, to a new place in terms of understanding the close encounter experience. I can name just on the fingers of one hand the number of books that actually do that.
The Messengers is the first in a trilogy of books, and each volume explores a deeper aspect of the UFO mystery. Stories from the Messengers, owls, UFOs, and a deeper reality. This is the second in the series, and it tells a series of 19 real-life stories, each with UFOs and owls. The third is Hidden Experience, a memoir of owls, synchronicity, and UFO contact. This is my own story, my emotional journey of coming to terms with very challenging memories and experiences. All my books are available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and very soon as audiobooks. Hey, this is Mike, and I have been pretty upfront with saying that I will not put advertisements in my podcast. And then I follow that up with, except if it's for my books. So what you just heard was very clearly an advertisement, and it's for my books. And if you have read or listened to any of my books, I would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment and leave a review or rate it on Amazon. This one simple act, more than anything, truly helps a self-published author like me to get the word out, allowing other readers to discover my work. So let me add a few more things. If you enjoyed this episode and my other episodes, and you would like to support the show, please consider joining me on Patreon. Your contributions will help keep this podcast ad-free. And you always have the option to join my Patreon site as a free member. All my shows will remain free. There are extras for paying members, things like behind-the-scenes updates and an occasional chat with the host. That's me, and you can do that with the other members. But that will be for paying members only. If you like the show, please help spread the word. Share the podcast with your friends, leave a review, or post about it on social media. Your support means so much to me. Bye now.